Welcome to this Mastery Empowerment course from New Earth One Network. This is designed exclusively for your higher self connection and embodiment. Welcome to this Mastery Empowerment course. We are here with energy healer Gail Jett, who is here to talk with us about the heart and opening the heart and the importance of that and our health. Hi, Gail. Welcome.
Hi, Lauren. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, here we are talking about this powerful year of transformation, the 222 codes. And we are being asked, well, actually, we're being supported by the divine feminine frequencies, the frequencies of the mother. So with what you're going to share today, when we talk about the heart and our health, how is this imperative that we open the heart? Why is this so important?
Thank you for asking that question, because it's a great question, and it's very timely for right now, for sure. And I think I will be going into greater detail, of course, in the upcoming course. But the reason it is important to have our hearts open right now is that there's a lot of energy that is shifting. For those of us who are sensitive to that, we know that is going on, and there's actually some good scientific evidence to back some of that up too. But the heart is really considered by many cultures, for example, to be the seat of intuition. And in the United States, for example, heart disease is the leading cause of death, and this was not always the case. This is a relatively new phenomenon, I would say, roughly since the Industrial Revolution. Prior to that time, they did not see a lot of heart disease. There were other things that caused death, but and we will talk about this in the course, but I think one of the single biggest things is that the heart speaks to us, and she speaks quietly. And we live in times that are very busy and very distracting. And so this can be a problem for us to be able to hear that still small voice of hers. Now, many of us, we know our intuition. There are a lot of us who are used to hearing from her. Personally, when she really wants to get my attention, it'll be a voice, and it'll be, are you sure you want to do that? And then other times it's just sort of a knowing, and I know that people know what I'm talking about. It's just a sense, it's a feeling. And again, we'll go into this in the course. What the Institute of Heart Math has been able to show us, for example, they've been studying the heart for well over 30 years. And it's absolutely fascinating what we're going to find out. And my background is conventional healthcare too, nurse practitioner for many, many, many years. And there are things that I've seen in my career that also made me realize how important our hearts are, and particularly for women, because women may not know this, but the leading cause of death for women is heart disease. It's been felt to be cancer, but it's not. It's heart disease. And I believe there are some important reasons for that. Um, just a quick, like looking at through the lens of like the divine feminine, we're the caretakers, we're the nurturers. So, we're extensions of Gaia, right? And so as our earth is troubled right now, we know that women are troubled and struggling in the multitude of roles that we have right now. The single biggest one being the nurturer, and it is the nurturer of other humans. It is the nurturer of our earth that we are not getting as much of a chance to do, many of us, in the ways that we want to do that. And we're not being able to nurture our fellow humans exactly in the way that we'd like to do that as well. So I think that people will find that when we talk about this course, I'm going to be examining some typical Western philosophy regarding how heart disease occurs, but I've learned an awful lot from the wisdom of Chinese medicine, and it's an older discipline. It's been around for, depending on whatever sources you take a look at, 3,500 to 5,000 years. There's a reason that it has endured for this long, because there's a great wisdom to it. It works. We know that's acupuncture and can be some of the Chinese herbs and things like that. But the bigger piece of it is the way that Chinese medicine brings in emotions, and which brings us back to the heart. And again, emotions can be the language of the heart. And we know we are living in really crazy, challenging times right now, where it can be very hard to hear or to manage our emotions as effectively as maybe we would like to, because we're being bombarded with a lot of information, and we all know all this, and so I'm not going to go into that, but it can be very, very distracting. And so what I'm going to be sharing in this course is some ways that we can actually learn to better access the wisdom of our heart. But what I would tell people today, to get started, is to think about using the breath effectively. The reason I say this is that we know that when we are in the fight or flight mode, or the stress mode, which is where many people are a good share of the time in these days, as we know, it has very detrimental effects on our heart. We need to spend more time in what we call the parasympathetic or rest and digest mode. And when we do that, the heart rate settles down. It tends to stabilize in a rhythm that we call coherence. And this just means that the beat to beat variability is smoother. There's not a lot of jagged changes in the actual rhythm of the heart. So it's a smoother rhythm. And it's important for everyone to know that the heart, and this comes from heart math, sets the tenor for the whole body. There are more neural pathways from the heart to the brain than from the brain to the heart. We also know the vagus nerve plays a huge role. The vagus nerve has a lot to do with parasympathetic activity, and there are nerve fibers to every single organ in the body from the vagus nerve. That's from the vagus nerve, versus it, and the as opposed to the only organ or gland that doesn't have a vagus intervention is the adrenal glands, which is very interesting. And the adrenal glands are the ones that are being constantly stimulated through fight or flight. And so as we learn to breathe properly, this can be a great way to help to get ourselves more into parasympathetic mode, which is much better for your heart. Your heart will thank you. And as we're able to calm the heart, as the heart is calm, sometimes this can help to quiet the chatter up here. We call it the monkey brain, the busy brain, whatever. But a lot of times when there's a lot of that going on, it is that we're not as coherent in our heart. So we can't hear what she's trying to tell us. So a proper breathing technique would just be, there are many ways to do it, but just breathing in slowly, like through a straw, for example. You can breathe in to a count of 5, and then breathe out through a straw to a count of 5. And what you're doing is experiencing the air coming in and filling your lungs and doing a nice big belly breath like we do in yoga, for example, and just filling that space, because the more that the lungs are filled, the better. We don't tend, in today's busy world, we tend to breathe to right about here. And we need to be able to expand the lungs and use all of their capacity so that we're giving, we're exchanging oxygen and getting rid of excess carbon dioxide and, waste products and that kind of thing that goes out through the breath. So we're going to be taking a look at the Western philosophy, the Eastern philosophy, the spiritual philosophy, and I'll throw in one other little surprise, is we're going to be taking a look at the effects of electropollution on the heart and some ways that we can help to mitigate those effects.
All right, so that is an in-depth course coming up with Gail, Jett, with you on how we can actually really be in sync with our breath and the heart, and open our heart and manage those emotions. Yeah, it is very interesting that the vagus nerve doesn't operate with the adrenal glands, and many of us are stuck on flight.
Yes.
Right. I
Yes.
know I was stuck on flight, and it's really interesting to think about this with the language of the heart, managing our emotions. There's been times I've been to the chiropractor, and my mental mind is not even aware of it, but he'll muscle test me, right? Muscle test, and say, there's grief in the heart. And it's like my ego mind says, I'm not sad. There's no grief. But he'll muscle test on aspects, and it will be revealed that it's for, in one case, it was for grief of humanity going through this pandemic. I'm going to cry right now. There's other times it's grief for the earth. And so isn't this amazing that we carry this, but yet we're not even aware of it? So what can we do? You mentioned the breath. This is really important. Is that really all there is to it? Or do you have another method to tune in for us to self-recognize this heavy heart that we have, and how to open and clear it?
There is another very easy exercise, because what you're bringing up is incredibly important. And we tend to think we're all separate beings. We've been told that from birth. We've been told we're separate. And the reality is that's very untrue. We're all connected, and we're all connected to the earth. And what we know, which I'll be sharing in the course, is with intuition, we know that the heart is actually able to access wisdom from a great distance. Okay. A quick example would be a mother knowing that her child is in trouble, and the child is halfway across the country, or in any number of those things. But going back to, you brought up a great point. We are going through a grieving, and we'll talk about that with, through the lens of Chinese medicine. And we have to remember that the lungs also carry grief, but the heart thinks, feels, and remembers, and has emotions. So yes, the heart can be feeling the effects of grief. And because these are crazy, challenging, very sad, very hard times. Many of us have lost friends or family to the pandemic. We've lost friends or family to the very divisive polarization that's going on. Those are all losses, and they're cumulative. And we've we've lost, frankly, our connection to our earth. And so one of a quick, easy way that we can regain connection to our earth is to ground. But a simple way to do that, most all of us have trees around us. And we can put our back, we can hug a tree too. They were onto something back then, right? But we can put our back to a tree. And when you put your back to a tree and just focus on your breathing, you're putting the bladder meridian, okay, which runs down the back of the body in Chinese medicine, and it governs the nervous system. So as we put our backs to a tree, we are actually able to use the effects of, we're plugging into the tree's ability to have those deep roots that go into the earth, and we take the excess electromagnetic charge that we do have, and our emotions are electromagnetic, all of that. So we take on this and we can help to discharge that excess back into the earth. And she's able to recycle that. She's very good at recycling the energy. So one technique that I like to use is from Donna Eden's teachings, and this is, we call it expelling the venom or the blowout. And it's incredibly simple. And what you do is think of unzipping. I start right here, think of a zipper, and I run my hand down to the pubic bone, thinking of unzipping my biofield, our energetic spacesuit, the aura, okay? And then you scoop your hands throughout the whole aura. And how I like to do it is I'll think of gathering up emotions. I might say them. I may say anger or grief. I may gather up scenes in my mind of disturbing situations that I've experienced, maybe with other people or with situations or whatever. But I think of gathering those up in my hands. And then we take and bring the hands like this forward, up over the head. Then you turn the hands this way. And it's very important to, then it's a very forceful sound. And then you discharge that, the hands go down. I'm turning so I don't do it to you. But we discharge that emotion into the earth, and we can use trees, plants, grass, that kind of thing. It's important to make sure we don't do that towards an animal or another person. But that can be a very effective way also. And doing it against a tree can be super effective. Okay, so this can be, and it really works. I find that when I don't do my blowout, I try to do it daily. I find that I feel different. And it also, and I would invite our listeners to try this, that if you have a thing, scenario, situation, thought, one of those uncomfortable ones where you're replaying, a disturbing situation about something or someone, take and do that. And by the way, I want to finish that. You do that 3 times forcefully. You do a 4th time very slowly, more like a sound, and then zip yourself back up. Very important to run your hand back up from the pubic bone. Again, it's electromagnetic. Your hand's electromagnetic. Run up from the pubic bone and up to the base of the chin, and lock that, because we do take on energies from other people in our environment. And the stronger that our own biofield is, the healthier it is, the less likely we're going to be impacted by that. Yeah, that, again, doing that against a tree can be useful, but this is where I was starting to say I would invite people to take a disturbing situation, even rate it. If it's really running through your head regularly, I wouldn't personally know, yes. But if it's, playing over and over, obviously it's something that is disturbing our peace. And so what it's going to do is help to remove the negative effects of the emotions out of our field. It doesn't get rid of the memory, but it helps take the charge off. And I think that's one of the most important things, is helping to take that charge off. And people, I know I always feel better after I do a blowout, and you might have to do it more than once during the course of a day, depending on whatever the situation is, because some of these are very highly charged, as we know.
Really good and very valuable tool there
Yes.
to assist us of really clearing our energy out. Yes, you say you do it once a day, but I think some will do it several times a day.
Yeah, you
Yes,
can't overdo it. That's the good news. You can't
that's the
overdo it.
All right, so do the blowout. And I know that some are standing right now with their back to a tree, or they're going to go out to a
Right,
back to a tree.
right,
I
right.
love that you've explained literally what's happening there, why that feels so good, why naturally we're so drawn to it, just to
Yes,
feel that groundedness of the trees, because science is proving that there is something going on.
yes,
And also, science is also, the quantum physics world is, and thanks to the heart math folks, proving that the heart is connected to the quantum field. Even
yes,
in hypnosis sessions, the body's ability to really relax through the heart center opens us up to that communication to the unified field where all of the information can be received. Isn't that fascinating? The heart is literally in charge here. We think it's the brain. And isn't it even interesting, back in the Egyptian days, they didn't save the brains at all. They weren't interested in the brain, but the heart, that was something different.
correct. Well, and then there were certain tribes, for example, throughout history, we know that you would eat the enemy's heart, right? I mean, unfortunately, but yes, sometimes that was done. Not all cultures, it tends to be tending more cannibalistic and all that, but it's what the heart represents. And as I have long thought, the more that I've looked at heart disease through the lens of Western and Eastern and spiritual, that I believe what finally happens is, I think maybe our hearts, they don't harden. I mean, you could maybe argue that energetically, but I think it's more that she gets tired of trying to get our attention. It's like when we work with an issue with a person, for example, and we've gone over it and over it and over it and over it, and nothing shifts or changes. We've all probably had more than one experience in this realm, and it's sort of, finally we just get tired of it, because it just, the behavior doesn't change, nothing changes. You're sort of tired of, like, it's, I feel like a broken record. And I think that energetically the heart can just start to finally, like, oh, you know, whatever. Um, and I think the heart can get louder sometimes. Personally, and I'm sure our some of our listeners have found this, is what I like to say is that when I ignore the psychic toothpicks upside my head, the hello, hello, then I get the 2x4. And if I don't, if that doesn't seem to get my attention, then I don't know what is. And I had a recent little health thing for myself that reminded me the importance of better managing my own emotions, because you know that that's what I mean. She speaks to us and it's like, okay, if I can't get your attention with these little gentle nudges, then I'm gonna really get your attention. So
Yes. All right. So when the heart gets tired of trying to get our attention, yes, this is interesting because It can come with that small, still voice. It can come through dreams that we can still ignore.
Oh,
And we
yeah.
can also override our intuition. So if the heart is the seat of intuition, and the heart is the way it is, the intuition is speaking to us through the heart, what are ways that we can learn to listen to the heart? You know, you would think it's pretty simple, listen to your heart, but it is amazing how that is a pretty important question from people. How do I listen to the heart? I know in my own journey, it was like, well, what does that mean? How do I listen to my heart? Do you have any suggestions on this?
Thank you. Yeah. And we're going to talk about this too in the course, where I get into intuition, because again, intuition is the language of the heart, and she speaks to us through emotion. But the intuition, and at least for myself over the years, I will say that I learned to listen to my intuition as a nurse practitioner. And what I mean by that is that I wasn't so aware of it in the beginning. There's a reason I'm saying it this way. In the beginning, I wasn't as aware, but I would find that maybe when I was working with a patient and I was thinking of maybe the differential around the diagnosis and the workup and all of that, I would have a knowing that I would get like a little nudge, like, in this case, you may want to order this and this, and you may want to refer this person out. And then other times I would like, no, I think we're okay with this for right now. And I learned to really trust that. And it's subtle. It's not like it just comes up and it hits you, but it's a knowing is what I would start to share with people. The second thing I would say is be patient with yourself, because frustration is not helpful in this process. But I've learned now that over the years, as I said, I started out really trusting my gut. And that's another way, term that many people may be more familiar with is trusting the gut. Because guess what? Yeah, the gut, there's a brain in the gut. Okay, that's another area. And I believe that the heart is command central. That's my belief. It doesn't necessarily mean that everyone agrees with that, but the gut speaks also. And when you think about the gut, the enteric system, it's very, very close to the physical heart. And so what I find in my practice today, because I have transitioned from doing conventional medicine now doing to energy medicine and preventive healthcare through energy work, because it's empowering and it's a lot of fun. But what I find is I get little quick hits, and this is what I would explain to people. Pay attention to the little, they pop right in. It might be, I need to ask this question of someone. It might be, I'll get a nudge, check the energy here in this meridian, or check this chakra. And so it's little things, and people need to trust that, because here's what happens. If you start to think about it, it's no longer your intuition, it's your ego. And your ego, there's nothing wrong with your ego. But the ego a lot of times we give it a little more control than it should have. And it tries to explain things, and it tries to make sense of. And the reality is that's not important when you're accessing intuition, because intuition is I believe more pure, but it's an instantaneous hit. It's this download, whatever anybody is comfortable calling it. I'll call it downloads sometimes when I'm talking with my clients. I'll sometimes get pretty significant downloads, and I'll just say, look, this is just what came in. Does this make sense? And here's the other piece. It doesn't always have to make sense. And if a person says to you, no, that doesn't make any sense, That doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means that from their frame of reference at that particular time, it's not necessarily resonating, if that's clear. So
Yes,
trust what comes in.
trust what comes in, the first thing that it comes in,
Yes.
because yes, I've experienced that self. I think many of us have experienced that where we override our intuition. Our logical mind comes in, or the ego comes in to say, nah, you're all right,
Right, right.
or to talk us out of it or whatever. So beautiful. So, um, better managing our emotions. I love the tools that you gave us today to really be able to catch those emotions or to decharge from those emotions. Can you lead us on an exercise or a meditation where we can scan our aura or our body for any emotions that we absolutely need to clear out or manage?
Absolutely. This is one of my favorites, and I take part. I want to give Donna Eden some credit for this. I've expanded on it, but it's a chakra meditation, and so I would just suggest that everyone get very, very comfortable and plant both feet on the floor and close your eyes and visualize a light, a white cleansing light coming up from the earth and traveling first into the root chakra. And you'll notice that as that light reaches the root chakra, the basic red color of the root chakra will light up, and visualize that light going through the whole root chakra and noticing if there's any dark areas, some stuck energy. It doesn't matter. You don't need to know what it is. It is you are in removing energetic clutter, and just see that light go through the whole root chakra, just clearing out and transmuting that dark or stuck stuff into nice, clear red light. And then you're going to visualize that light move up into the second chakra, the womb chakra. And the basic main color of that is a tangerine type of orange color. And the same thing, you're going to see that light transmute any dark, stuck, clutter type energy, just go in and swoop through the whole chakra and just see it clearing it out, clearing it out. Again, you don't need to understand what it is. It's just that you are just clearing and smoothing out the patterns there in the chakra. And then you're going to see that same light travel up into the solar plexus or third chakra. And that is more the gut area. It's above the belly button. And same thing, the main color here is more of a yellow, like a lemon yellow. Same thing, the light comes into this chakra. It starts to move throughout the whole chakra, transmuting any dark or stuck or clutter type energy so that the chakra feels that it's moving more smoothly. Chakras do tend to have, as many people know, swirling type patterns. So you want to maintain that nice, clear pattern. And when you're finished with working in the solar plexus chakra, you're going to have that light move up into the heart chakra, which is a beautiful green color. And your same thing, you're going to spend time moving that light, sending it throughout the whole chakra, helping to clear any clutter, debris, stuck stuff, dark stuff, until everything is clear and flowing smoothly. You will move up then into the throat chakra. The throat chakra is considered to be more of a turquoise type blue. And same thing, you're going to move into this throat chakra and help to clear any stuck or dark energy, clutter, that kind of a thing, so that again, the light in and the chakra itself are moving smoothly. The light will then continue to travel up to the third eye. And this is generally seen as an indigo blue. There can be some variations depending on teachings, but for our purposes, we'll have an indigo blue. The same thing, this energy is going to travel up into this third eye and just run through the whole chakra, clearing out any debris, any clutter, dark or stuck energy, so that you now have this beautiful, smooth, flowing energy. And finally, we're going to move up into the crown chakra. And again, depending on discipline, it has been clear or purple, but for our intents and purposes, it will be a purple color. And we're going to see the light travel up into this chakra. Same thing, opening it up, allowing for clear communication with the divine, and clearing out any blocks, clutter, debris, anything stuck, so that again, we see it all very, very smooth. And then we're going to invite the divine light from the heavens to travel in through our crown chakra, travel down through the body itself, down through the chakras, and all the way through, and then travel off our feet, so that we have this nice blending of the energies from the cosmos as well as the earth, and that we know that we are connected to both, and that we are a child of our heart. And just then go ahead and take a deep breath. And when people feel ready, they can go ahead and open their eyes and just see how they feel.
Refreshed and cleansed and vitalized.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome.
Such wonderful tools that help us manage our energy, take responsibility for our energy.
Yes.
We've got the tools, we simply have to remember to use them.
Yes, you are correct.
So what I found there is no need to go into the story of, or what we find in each of those chakras, but for me, there was clearly different stuff in each chakra.
Yes.
So I find that interesting. The lower ones were different than the higher ones. For example, when our third eye chakra has some stuff in it, what's going on there? Is it keeping us from visualizing things?
It can, absolutely. There is a general theme for each chakra. The root chakra being groundedness, it's survival, it's family, it's getting your basic needs met. Second chakra is considered to be the womb chakra, also recognized as an area of intuition and creativity. And this is very broad and general. But then we have the third chakra, which is basically seen as the seat of ego and identity, you know, who you are, your place in this world, particularly now. When we move into the heart chakra, that's about love and grief and connection, excuse me, with others. And the throat chakra is a very interesting one because it has ties to all the different chakras, but its general theme is speaking your truth, you know, being heard, or stuffing it down, which is an interesting note that many more women have thyroid disease than men do. Just a little side note. We move into the pineal gland, or the third eye, the sixth chakra. And that is also considered to be a seat of intuition. Many people feel that your intuition is right here. And that's just, it's again, I don't think there's an either or a wrong or right. I think it's another area that we look at. But the pineal gland also is an area that is responsible for sleep wake cycles, for example. And so, pardon me, when interestingly, when the heart is disturbed, and we're going to talk about that in the course, but quite often we end up having problems with sleep wake. I believe it is because the heart is said to house the Shen, or the mind. And we're not talking about the physical mind right now, but we're talking about when there are disturbances in sleep, for example. There's a tie-in between these two chakras, for sure, the heart and the pineal, or sixth chakra, in my opinion. So sometimes an ability, because what we are clairvoyant, we're all clairvoyant. We're all have all the clairs, the clairaudience, the clairsentience, and all, the clear seeing, the clear feeling, and clear hearing, all of that. But we tend to ignore that, and a lot of that's been as our childhood upbringing. We were kind of told, no, you didn't see this, and no, you didn't hear this, no, you don't have an invisible friend, all of these things. So we've learned very effectively to stuff that stuff. And I believe that the pineal, or sixth chakra, is definitely another seat of clairvoyance or clairseeing. And when we have stuff in the way, clutter, right? It's like clutter. We know we're uncomfortable when we have a lot of clutter. I think all of us can agree we all feel better. I know I do, when I can straighten up my clutter. And it's energetically, we're getting rid of clutter. So when we go in and clear the chakra, for example, and this was an abbreviated, I think everybody knows, that was an abbreviated meditation for today. But you can spend as much time as you need. And again, I think the important thing is not getting too caught up in the story per se, but it's more knowing that as we go in and self-clear a chakra, for example, a lot of times when I work on myself, I like to use my left hand. The left hand is the receiving hand, and the feminine, okay? And the left side of the body is the feminine, or receptive, or yin side of the body in Chinese medicine. I like to clear, let's just say if I were going to clear my sixth chakra, I'm going to go, if you pretend you have a clock wherever you're looking, if this makes sense. So for me, I'll visualize a clock right here, and I will just go counterclockwise. Let's see it. Yeah, what I'm looking at the clock. I'll make that. I'm looking at the clock, and I will visualize going counterclockwise on my clock that I'm looking at. Okay, and so I will do that for a few periods. If people feel that they may be noticing some kind of stuck energy, a lot of us do feel that sort of stuff. We start picking it up. You just shake your hand off. And then finally, when you feel like you've cleared, again, it's just paying attention to what you're feeling with your hand. When you feel like you've cleared that, then you can bring in your right hand and put in energy in a clockwise fashion. Okay, again, I'm looking at my clock. It's right here. I'm looking at my clock. So it's clockwise for me. I'm using the right hand. The right hand is the giving hand. It's the masculine hand, the yang, the giving, and just think of putting nice, clean, balancing energy into that chakra. And it's really amazing how it's housekeeping, it's chakra housekeeping, house cleaning, right? And it can make a difference in how you feel.
I love that. Chakra house cleaning, the importance of it. Such
Right.
a valuable tool in its simplicity. We can do this. We can take care of ourselves immediately as we go about our day. Yes,
Yes.
so wonderful tools. Straighten and clear the energetic clutter. Again, you can spend time in each of those chakras, definitely, without going into why something was there that I personally felt, for example.
Mhm.
I just realized that something was there. And so some chakras needed more time than others. And so then we can go back and take care of that. It's
Right.
really interesting. It really is. So I've got two more questions for you. I'm going to start with the feeling of fear. So, the feeling of fear, because our mind can be like a racehorse out of the track when we feel fear. Do you
Correct.
have a technique to stay anchored in the heart or to amplify the heart in the face of fear so that we can really? I mean, you gave great examples like the zip down and then blow out. It's wonderful. But what do you do if you catch yourself maybe fearful of something out in the environment, or just fear maybe something that we read or see, just some fear? What do we do with that?
So a quick technique, I have two. These are my go-to quickies. A quick technique is what I call change the channel. When we read something, and there's no shortage, I've had to do this for myself, so I'm very familiar. I pay attention to how it makes me feel, and if it's making me fearful, I turn around and I think of what is something that I'm grateful for. Let's change the channel. It's useful. It's very helpful. I'll just say, I'm useful for my eyes to see the beautiful sunrise this morning, or useful for my legs because they're carrying me about. And as you add, I just make a gratitude list. It shifts and you'll feel better. Now that's one way to do it. Another very effective way that I use a lot in my practice is to have people put one hand on the forehead. These are special, what we call neurovascular acupuncture points. We work with these a lot in Donna Eden's program. We learn. She calls these, in a very fitting, the oh my God points. It's like, you go, oh my God, right? And what do? We put our hands right there. And it helps bring blood back up into the brain that can leave as a result of stress. And this we know, they've documented the blood can leave the brain. Okay. The other hand's going to go on the back of the head where your eyes and eyebrows would be. And excuse me, pardon me. This gets into Chinese medicine, 5-element theory, and I don't have time for that right now. That could be a whole class. But those are what we call the water points, and fear is in the water element. Okay. You're also holding some points on the fire element, which when that's a little bit out of balance, that can be anxiety. So fear and anxiety, I tell people, they can ride in on the same horse, and they frequently do. The fear can create anxiety around whatever, the anxiety can create fear. So what I have people do is when they notice that, give it a number, on a scale of 1 to 10. How bad is this? And if you're up there to a 9 or a 10, one hand on the forehead, one hand on the eyes and eyebrows in the back of your head, close your eyes, sink into that issue, bring it up right smack front and center. And you keep breathing. You can do the slow, deep breathing we were talking about earlier. And then after about a minute or two, just make a mental note. What number would you give it? Almost always it will go down. Once in a great while, it might go up. Hang in there and keep holding, because it will finally start to come back down. You're helping to train the brain, because this gets into the whole topic of neuroplasticity. Okay. And that's laying down, the fact that we lay down new neural pathways, we strengthen neural pathways where your thoughts go on a regular basis. You're going to strengthen that neural pathway. So part of this is to shift us and not make that neural pathway so strong. Because a lot of the stress that we have right now, and I mean, if we're being honest with ourselves, myself included, I have been here, where you start focusing on something and you're like, oh, and we make it huge. And I always think of this old adage, the worry is the worst. The worst never happens. And it's useful for these times. But this helps retrain the brain. And so if this is a recurring theme for you, for any of us, get those hands back up there, because what you're doing is telling the brain, oh yeah, okay. Where it's, I'm simplifying this, but there's a lot going on. The limbic or emotional seat of the brain, the amygdala, which is kind of, the alarm center, that kind of thing. What we're doing is trying to get blood and nutrition and oxygen back up into these structures, and at the same time train ourselves not to go into that place of real fear and the accompanying anxiety that often is with it.
Yes, a vital tool,
Yes.
actually,
Yes.
for us to utilize whenever we see the need. Beautiful. All right, well, we're training the brain with this tool, creating new neural pathways, stabilizing ourselves into thinking well, and that's really important in these days, as you said.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
as we're going to have your course, and we invite those watching and listening to register for that. The information is right here on this webpage. You are so fun to be with, and the tools and tips that you give are really wonderful for our times and our own health. And so we're excited for this, and we're excited for those to sign up and register and join. Do you want to add anything else about this course that we didn't get to?
Well, like I said, I'm going to be examining the whole issue about our hearts and our health and heart health from the Western, Eastern spiritual perspective. But I will be sharing a little bit also about other effects, and you'll have to take the course to find out what those are. But it'll essentially be, does weather have an effect? Do we have an effect on weather? Does the sun have an effect? It absolutely does. We'll go into that and the effects that it can have. And finally, talking about some of the electromagnetic effects. I'm talking about, do our devices have an effect? Yes, they do. Can we mitigate those effects? Yes, we can. But you'll have to tune in to find out what those are.
Great. Thank you. And that course is comprehensive. So a lot of great information comes out of it, and the opportunity to ask questions.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes, awesome. And the recording is also included for those who need to join by replay. It's really wonderful. So again, we invite those to register and sign up for that. Well, so then this brings me to my last question, and it could be a short response, but isn't it fascinating that here you are, a nurse, coming from the field of nursing in that medical field, and you've given it all up. You're integrating it into what you do today.
Sure.
And doesn't that bring you optimism for the whole changing medical field? What are your
Yes.
thoughts on that? Is it shifting?
Yes, yes, it totally has. And we have it's no secret to everybody. We have a lot of challenges facing our healthcare system. We have had, we really do right now. And I left conventional medicine, not, I mean, what I found for myself personally was that if I really wanted to get into true preventative healthcare, and I talked about this a little bit when I did my doctoral dissertation, but true preventative healthcare is not doing screening exams, okay? It's going farther into the root cause, and I'm talking energetic. And Chinese medicine has talked about disease beginning in the energy field for centuries. And in fact, their providers were only paid when they kept their folks well, which is a whole different paradigm shift from what we have right now. And I'm not here to diss what we're doing right now, but I'm saying that I think we could do a better job, and that screening catches something that's already manifested, okay? But what about looking at things from an energetic standpoint and having people pay more attention to how they're feeling as they start doing energetic practices, self-help practices, meditation, um, the breathing and all of that, and making that a part of their healthcare practice, bringing in that other piece, making this another very important piece of what we do to care for ourselves. We have, we go in and we get checkups and things like that. But what if we brought in this whole other piece of it that is about trying to get to the root cause of energetic disturbances where we can begin to make a difference, because we know that they tend to start in the energy field, and if they're not addressed, they tend to work their way in from the quantum perspective and then become physical illness. So yeah, and that's why I found I just have a lot more fun doing that. And I love having my background because I tell people, when they come in with the diagnosis, I'll say your diagnosis is important to me, but what your diagnosis is going to do is give me clues of where I want to go look and check for energetic imbalances and do some work and clearing and balancing and all that. So yeah, but I think we're going to be changing in some positive directions. We need to. I mean, all of this is about change right now. Our
Yes.
world needs to change.
Our world is changing
It is.
one heart at a time, and that's where we are eternally optimistic for the change. And this year of 2022 is a great year of opportunity for transformation,
Yes.
especially being supported by the 222 codes. It is simply, we don't need to label it with the 222 codes. It's simply the heart going into the heart. And so, as the medicine field changes, as people get into taking care of their own energy and alternative therapies for energies, even in the face of a diagnosis, the doctor watching that diagnosis or the progression or regression of that diagnosis is absolutely pulled into it as well, saying, keep doing what you're doing, we can't explain it.
Right.
And those stories will continue to grow and continue to inspire the medical profession, don't you think?
Yes, they will. They will. I had that exact thing happen years ago with an issue with my husband, and we were able to keep him out of surgery. People can ask me this during the course if they'd like, in the interest of time, but we were able to keep him out of surgery. And his doctor said, I don't know what it is you're doing, but keep doing it. So yeah.
And when doctors say that, that's wonderful.
Right.
So we, the people, will be our own resource, a dictionary, so to speak, or a pharmacy, the people pharmacy of care for ourselves. Thank you. Thank you so much for the time today and your wisdom. You are a wonderful teacher for all those who are ready to receive your knowledge. Thank you, Gail Jett.
Thank you very much, Lauren. This was a pleasure.
Namaste.
Namaste.